Welcome to today's Grade 12 Business Studies show on business management, proudly brought to you by Macmillan. We have selected highlights from lessons shown early in the term to help you revise and prepare for your June exams. You can download the notes for today's show from learnextra.co.za/live. Now it's time to get on with today's lesson. Please post your comments and questions on our Facebook page on facebook.com/learnextra or on Twitter @learnextra so we can help you with your revision.
So what I have now for us, if you want to take out your Macmillan textbook and follow along on page 127, activity 7. And this is a nice way of looking at problem solving and taking problem solving and making it practical, guys. So this is, like I said, page 127, activity 7. So here's a picture, and there's a lady standing in the middle of what looks like a factory, and she says, we really have problems to solve in this factory. So keep that in mind as I go up. So Sue Mshlango, a BCom graduate from UNISA, had been working as a clerk in a large company for the last 6 years. Now when her aunt Maggie asked her to join her successful knitting factory, which she has started 3 years ago, Sue was very interested. Now the company was receiving orders from receiving orders for jerseys, but despite the high demand for their quality products due to reasonable prices, Maggie has been unable to keep things at the company running smoothly. Now Sue found that the factory was in disarray. No one knew who to turn to for advice, what quantities to produce, and what quality standards to adhere to. Now Sue knew that she needed to find solutions to the problems. So there's a lot happening here, guys, and as we do the question, we'll go back up to this. So the question is asking us, identify the various problems in the factory by looking at the artwork and reading the case study. So the first thing we need to do here is look at the artwork, and let's see. So there's a gentleman here running around. You can see he's sweating, stressing. Another problem we can identify here, the lady's sitting here and it looks like there's a problem with her sewing machine. Another thing here, looks like a grumpy old guy there, cobwebs, obviously not enough work happening there, things lying around, and again, more things lying around. So those are the things we can identify in the picture. If we go back to the case study, we could see that Sue found the factory in disarray. No one knew who to turn to. No one knew what quantities to produce and what quality standards to adhere to. So with question A, let's make some space and we'll answer this together. So A, what are the problems we found? First one is that there is high demand, and from the looks of the picture and the case study, there's high demand, but they can't necessarily, they can't supply it. So there's high demand and they can't continuously supply this. Another issue is that they tell us this in the case study, that the factory isn't running smoothly. So it is not running well. A third problem here, so let's label that C. A third problem is that there are no defined roles or responsibilities. So in other words, these people don't know what to do, when to do it, because they're not getting any guidance. And I'll do 2 more with you. And let's have a look at the picture. What else can you identify? You'll see there, from this you can see that they don't know how much to produce, and they also don't know what quality to produce this at. So we can say, sorry, I just want to relabel this and make this just point 2 and point 3. This will be 0.4. They are not sure on the quantity or the quality. Now, the reason they want you to identify the problems in this case study is for you to see, okay, so what isn't working there? So what is wrong? So what's wrong? People don't know what to do. The company isn't running as smoothly as it could. Orders are coming in. People don't know what quality. And when they mean if they don't know what quality, if I produce a jersey and if you produce a jersey, they're going to be of two different qualities. And if you've got a company, it needs to have a set standard. So those are the problems, and I suspect what they want you to do with this activity, look at the problems and then find a creative way of solving these issues, or at least a way of solving the issues. So we've identified the problems. Let's go have a look at the second question. Use the steps discussed to solve these problems up to the finding workable, logical, and reasonable solutions. So we've identified the problems. What we're going to be doing now is looking at solutions. And what I've done for you for B, these are the steps. Please do me a favor and write these steps down. These are vital. And you can even give this, grab a piece of paper, grab your business book, write this down. So these are problem-solving steps. And we're going to use these problem-solving steps to sort out the problems in the factory. So the very first problem-solving step would be to identify or to define the problem. Now, there are a couple of problems in this factory, and you can't just go, the problem is everything. So what you'll probably have to do is choose one and go through each problem individually. So let's go with people not knowing what quantity to produce. So what is the problem? The problem is, let's call it unclear quantities produced. The second part in the problem-solving steps would be to analyze the problem. So the first one was, let's identify the problem. The second part is, let's analyze the problem. So remember what problem we're looking at? We're looking at not quantity, not enough, the quantities aren't correct. So what does the analyzing the problem mean? For me, to analyze the problem would be orders will probably not be met properly. So analyze the problem. Orders not met because of unclear quantities. The third part of the problem-solving technique would be to identify solutions. So now we have defined the problem. What is the problem? Unclear quantities being produced. Then we analyzed the problem, and we analyzed, and what we found was orders are not being met. I'm sorry. And number 3, identify solutions. So what can we do to rectify the problem of orders not being met? So we can, my solutions would be, first one, create a schedule. So with the schedule, look at what the order quantities are and sticking to it. Or you could have place a foreman in charge to make sure things are working out. You can give people set daily goals. With this part, guys, you can literally make hundreds of them as long as you look at each of them. So that was number 3. Number 4, choose the best solution. So we have now in step 3 looked at possible solutions. My favorite solution would be to create a schedule. So you're choosing your best solution. The best solution would be a schedule, so people can stick to it. And number 5, we look at implementing solution. So with implementing the solution, you are literally going to take a big, create a computer program, spreadsheets, whatever you need to do, but you're going to create a schedule and stick it up. So implement the solution on a board at work or on a wall. you are going to stick up the schedule so people know how much they must produce every day. And lastly would be to evaluate the chosen solution. So now we've implemented the schedule, now to evaluate it, we need to, on a daily, weekly basis, go and see, are the workers sticking to the schedule and is the schedule working? Now, I love this problem solving steps because you can use this with everything. The second question I've got here is from a previous exam paper, and it looks at, again, we're going to look at creative ways of fixing things. So, grab a pen, if you can follow along, it'll be great. So this is the second question. And remember, I'm going to tell you this every time I underline something. Whenever you get a case study, grab your highlighter and just underline all the important things. It'll help you answer questions later on. So Extra Mining Company. So Extra Mining Company in Armaloa is mining asbestos, which is a highly toxic substance. They want to open a second mine in Badplaas. So they want to open a second mine. The area is next to a breeding ground for different types of birds and freshwater fish. It is also a popular tourist attraction, which is frequently visited by environmentalists and international tourists. Most residents are unskilled and unemployed. So the people living in the area are unskilled, unemployed. Now, there are very few shops and no recreational facilities for the community. The mine will create, the mine will create employment for the local people by building a school and a clinic. The environmental groups are opposed to the mining operation at Badplaas, which is, remember, this is the second place they want to open. They believe that the waste products from the mine will pollute the wetlands, and members of the local community may suffer from asbestos, which is a disease contracted from asbestos mining. See, a lot happening here, but if you come back to it, it'll be easy for you to answer questions. So the very first question here is asking you, apply the force field problem solving technique to address the above problem. Now, a force field, if you think back to your grade 11, a force field problem solving technique looks at all the problems it looks at all the issues for and against a problem. In other words, a force field analysis looks at the pros and cons. So the question was, looking at the case study, create a force field analysis with the information to help you come up with a solution. So the first part of a force field analysis, so step 1, would be to define the problem. And in the case here, defining the problem would be opening a second mine in Badplaas. The second step is literally to create a table showing the pros and cons. So quickly grab a piece of paper. As I'm doing this, you can do it with me, creating the do's and don'ts, really. So let's make this the pro side, and let's make this the con side. Remember, pros and cons, this would be what are the advantages, and this would be what are the disadvantages. Let's draw a line down, and referring back to that case study, I just want to quickly show you that one more time. There was a lot happening here. So from the case study, when you're sitting in the exam, take the highlighted bits, look at all the advantages, and look at all the disadvantages. So what I'm going to be doing with you, let's first do all the advantages and then all pros, and then we can do all the disadvantages. The first advantage was that they are going to provide training and skills to the community, and this will, in the long run, obviously create employment for the locals, because remember, the local people there were unskilled and mostly unskilled and untrained for what they wanted to do. The second advantage, if they create a second mine, more people have to be involved. So they're educating people, so they're creating jobs. So yes, tourism will suffer, but the economic development will counteract that financially. So the second advantage would be the economic growth will replace the tourism. The third advantage here that I found was that they are developing clinics and obviously helping the people in their community. On the other hand, guys, obviously, so we've looked at all the advantages. Let's have a look at the disadvantages. I really want to fix that. I'm sorry. Clinics. So they are building or developing clinics. On the con side, or the side against this, the first thing they're going to do, or the first thing against building the mine, would be that there is not enough skilled labor. So skilled labor shortage. The second disadvantage would be that tourism is affected. Tourism is affected. And with that point, so tourism is affected, but it's also going to mean the environment's going to be affected. And that, to me, that's just as negative. So remember that the environment's going to be affected. And the third disadvantage would be to start a second mine would be a really large capital outlay. In other words, what I mean with a large capital outlay, you can imagine, so they want to open a second farm at Butblas. That is going to cost literally millions and millions of rands. So they're going to have a lot of money available to do this. Now, with the force field analysis, what you do is you usually list about 4 or 5. I needed 3 with you today. But you're going to do a few. And then what you're going to do is you're going to score it. And beforehand, you can decide the weighting. So you can say it's going to go from 1 being it's not such a great point to 5 being this is really important. And the reason for this is, we can quickly do this. So training and skills development to employ or help people get employed, I would say this is a 5. Then economic growth will replace tourism. I'll make that a 2. And developing clinics for people, that's really important. So we'll weigh that a 5. On the other side, there's a shortage of skilled labor. That's quite a serious problem. So I'll make that a 3. The tourism affected, again, I think that will be a negative. So that will definitely be a 3. And large capital outlay, which is serious. So I'll make that a 5.
Okay guys, I hope you're enjoying this revision session. If you are struggling and need help, remember to post on the page or send an email to helpdesk@learnextra.co.za. Now it's time for a break, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back guys. I hope you are getting into the idea of revision. Please let us know how you are doing. I'd love to chat to you on the page or on Twitter. Enough of the chat, let's get back to revision now.
The activity that I'm doing, it's on page 137. It's activity 4. So let's change pens to make it a bit more lively. So on page 137, activity 4. This is a case study that looks at ethical and unprofessional issues. Now remember, what do I tell you every week? If there's a case study or anything to read, you always grab your highlighter. So I'm going to do this with you. Let's quickly read through it. So Jerkins Cheese Factory. Now Mr. Jerkins recently opened a cheese producing plant which has now become quite successful. Now consumers love his product as it tastes really good. It is low in prices and has a long shelf life. So these are really all the positive things about Mr. Jerkins Cheese Factory. However, Jerkins is adding various colorings and preservatives to the cheese and is not declaring it on the label. Remember, according to South African legislation, you have to put everything under the ingredients when you produce a product, so that people with allergies or anything are aware of what they are consuming. So this is the first thing that he's doing that's not ethical. Let's carry on. He's been getting away with this as he bribes the health inspector not to report him to the authorities. He has another issue. He's bribing an authority. Now, he can keep his prices low because his salesman, Benny, has a brother who works for the opposition, and he gives Benny inside information about various stores, what they order, their prices, and what they pay. So he has another ethical issue. He's literally getting information about competition. And then it would also cost him a lot of money to have the waste products from the factory taken away. So at night, he gets his driver to dump it on some vacant land near a small town. So he has another issue, guys. He's dumping on vacant land. Now, he also repackages stock of cheese that are past their sell-by date, and then sells them to unsuspecting stores. So that's another ethical issue. The food is literally has its sell-by date. He goes, oh, I want to sell this. I'm just going to put a new sticker on it. Now, the last part here, the conditions at the factory are poor, and the workers are very dissatisfied. Some workers have been fired without the employee following labor laws, and they're also getting really sick of Jerkins losing his temper and shouting at them all the time. So as you can see, this guy is doing a lot of things wrong. And I'm sure as I was reading through it, you can see both the ethical and professional issues. Now, before I go to the first question, we've done the case study. I quickly just want to look at the picture that comes with this case study as well. Now, very quickly, let's have a look here. So this is Jerkins Cheese Factory. So let's have a look. I saw Mr. Jerkins giving money to the health inspector. That's not on. I can't work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. anymore. That's a 12-hour shift, not necessarily correct if it doesn't have the correct, if he's not following the correct labor laws. There looks like there's some sexual harassment happening over here. This person looks really tired. There's clear hygiene issues there with that guy messing all over himself. We can see Jerkins here shouting at his employees, which isn't proper. And you can also see the place is pretty dirty. And it actually looks like this guy might be stealing. He has rubbish lying around. So literally, this cheese factory is a scary place in general. Let's have a look at the questions. So the first question looks at identify the unlawful, unprofessional, and unethical business practices in the picture and in the case study. So what I've done here is, as we went through the case study, we saw what we circled on the picture, what's happening there, but we also highlighted. So it's really easy to answer this question. So let's have let's look at the first part, which is the unlawful practices. So for A, let's go. What are all the unlawful issues? I'm only going to do 2 with you guys today. If you can, try and do more by yourself. So what are the issues? What are the unlawful issues? Firstly, you are not allowed to dump on vacant land. So the first issue would be dumping. Another one would be that it's unsafe as well as a dirty work environment. Now, remember, if it's an unsafe or a dirty work environment, this could mean that the product gets contaminated, as well as workers getting sick. And again, I'm jumping back to labor relations. Remember, you, according to the law, have to make sure that your workers are healthy. So that's the first one, guys, unlawful activities. The second part of this question asked us to look at what are the unprofessional issues. So the unprofessional issues. Now, while I'm quickly writing this, try and think back what would be unprofessional. The first thing that I got here, unprofessional, remember, would be, well, I suppose just not being professional. So the first thing I thought of was the fact that Jerkins is taking as well as giving bribes. That's completely unprofessional because that will influence the business and it's against the law. So let's write that first one down. So the first unprofessional thing would be offering as well as providing bribes. The next one I picked up was that he's also allowing Benny, remember the guy whose brother works there, he's allowing Benny to gather information on his behalf. And that is obviously also not professional. And the last one they asked us to look at is looking at what are the unethical issues. So let's quickly do unethical. So what was unethical? And again, while I'm writing this, try and think of that picture, think of the case study. What do you remember was unethical? And what I picked up with unethical was that, so Jerkins received this unethical information from Benny, for example. So the fact that he received the information and he's acting on it is completely unethical. Unethical would also be the fact that he's dumping goods. Literally, there were so many things wrong there, guys. So let's just write 2 of them down and we can carry on. So unethical would have been acting on private information. And I said, you can also, that's a whole lot happening there. Let me quickly fix that. So acting on the information, but it would also be shouting at your employees in front of other employees. So shouting at employees. Now the reason why this is unethical, grade 12s, would be if you have an issue with me, if I'm doing something wrong, the professional thing would be call me into your office and tell me what I'm doing wrong. Again, I'm just going to use an example. Think about when somebody shouts at you in front of a whole crowd. It's not a very comfortable experience, and it's also not the right thing to do. So that's A. Let's quickly have a look at what B asked us. So B asked us, recommend solutions and improvements for Mr. Jerkins in line with good business practices. Now for B, it's actually quite easy. Before Mr. Jerkins can do anything, the first thing he needs to do, or the first thing he needs to implement, would literally be to follow South African laws, to follow labor legislation, laws on how to run factories, how clean things need to be, laws on not repackaging, stuff like that. So let's quickly answer B. So for B, what are the possible solutions? So like I said, the first important thing, he must follow all South African laws. And other suggestions that I threw in here as well would be he needs to make sure that he has a clean factory, and he should also make sure that he has proper waste management. Remember the proper waste management, he got the driver to simply dump the goods, which is, you can obviously all see what's wrong with that. So proper waste management. And let's quickly have a look at C. C is asking us, what do you think the salesman Benny should do about the ethical dilemma that he has regarding his brother? Now, for C, I'm not going to write this down, grade 12s. It's simply Benny should be spoken to you. He should be told why this is wrong, and he should be informed that he should stop doing what he's doing because he is providing competition with information. So that's literally the easy part with C. Benny should just be warned. Now let's have a look at D. What should Mr. Jerkins do about Benny? Now, theoretically, if Mr. Benny, Mr. Jerkins. Mr. Jerkins should warn, so in C we said that Benny should be warned. So Mr. Jerkins should warn Benny. Now, if Benny continues with this behavior where he's giving him information away, there should be what is called due process. Now, Benny should go through a disciplinary hearing, and at the end of it, because this theoretically becomes a legal issue, he can even be fired at the end because it's against the law. So that was a sort of a fun activity looking at this really dodgy guy selling cheese and everything that he was doing wrong. Now remember, the big thing with business, we can look at what's going wrong, but we always need to find a solution. Now the next question I took was multiple choice questions from previous exam papers. And these questions, remember, multiple choice grade 12s, I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of multiple choice. It's sort of, I always joke and say it's multiple guess. Okay? Take the time. It's usually worth 2 marks. And at the end of the day, 2 marks could end up being
It's
a
a lot of
percentage.
marks.
Yeah. So don't throw it away. So let's have a quick look at these questions. I'm going to change my color again. Let's make it orange. So the question was, which of the following would you regard, so let me underline with you, which of the following would you regard as an ethical business practice? Now remember what I've told you in the past, when you're going through these questions, go through in your mind, the first thing you should do is try and find the right answer. If you can't find the right answer, go through a process of elimination. So let's have a look at the first one. So the first one, so which one of the following would be regarded as ethical? So let's have a look at A. Price fixing between cell phone services and providers. That to me sounds pretty unethical. Let's have a look at B. Competitors working together to fix government tenders. The word fix is sort of giving it away. I think it's unethical. Let's have a look at C. Commercial banks fixing bank charges. Unethical. So before we actually even got to the answer, do you see how through the order of elimination we found the correct answer? So what is the right answer for this, grade 12s? So remember, what was the question? Which one of the following would you regard as an ethical business practice? And in this case, charging the same price for goods in urban and rural areas. So that was the first question. Now, let's go to question 2.2. And this one, let's try and do it slightly differently. Let's read the question and then try and find the answer before going through the deductions. So the monitoring of based business practice includes economical, environmental, and social issues. Now, this is largely due to, so the key words that are jumping out here, environmental, social, and economical. Immediately, I spoke about it earlier, those 3 things should tell you it should be part of the King's Code. So before you even look at the question, keep King's Code in mind and let's see if it's in the answers. So let's have a look. SWOT analysis doesn't really look like what I'm looking for. King's Code, this could be a possibility. General management, definitely not. And problem-solving techniques definitely have nothing to do with economics, environmental, or social. So for this question, we know the answer would be B. Nice and easy. Now, let's have a look at this one. Jumped around a bit, guys. So this part is literally just part of there, don't stress. So an external factor that regulates the way in which businesses handle ethical challenges. So an external way that businesses can make sure what they're doing is correct. So external, in other words, it's an outside influence making sure the company is doing it correctly. So let's have a look. The first part here would be a company's mission statements. The second part here, government legislation. The third part here, safety and security legislation. And the last one here, company procedures. So I'm quickly going to ask what Tebogo thinks this is. So what is an external factor that will influence how business faces challenges?
Wow. I haven't been concentrating on it.
External, so it's outside.
Oh, okay. Government legislation.
There we go. Government, guys. Because remember, government influences from the outside in. Well done, Tebogo. Huh? So that would be B. I quickly want to do the rest of these with you. 2.4, which one of the following could be regarded as unprofessional, unethical? This would be, the answer would be B, guys. Selling second-hand goods for new goods.
Now it's time for a break, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. I know you can't wait for the term to end and the July holidays to start. And of course, that means winter school. This year, we will be bringing you special exam revision sessions from the 1st till the 5th of July from 9 a.m. in the morning till 7 p.m. at night. We'll also be repeating the programs from 9:30 p.m. every evening. So don't miss out. If you want to do exam revision with other learners and get help from expert tutors, you can register for our winter school classes at a PC training center near you. Just go to our website www.learnextra.co.za/classes to get all the details. But for now, let's get back to revision. Over to you.
So these were adapted from different previous papers. Remember, doing previous papers are very important, grade 12s, because at school you generally do a lot of the tests your teacher set up, and then you maybe get to the prelims or finals, and it's the first time you've seen these papers. And the language is often very different, and it's not that you don't know the answer, but you don't understand the language, and then it throws you off. Okay, so just a little exam tip for you. Let's have a look at this question. The Chief Executive Officer or CEO of Tongaat Hewlett Sugar Limited wants to consult with all the stakeholders to achieve specific production targets, and this is known as the what management style. So let's have a quick look here. We have autocratic, we have laissez-faire, and we have democratic as well as charismatic. Now, if you think back to when we looked at the leadership styles, this should help you again. So let's have a look. Out of all of these, what would, if he wants to consult with all the stakeholders to achieve a goal, this would definitely be the democratic. Remember, democratic, we get people to vote, and from that vote, we make a decision. The second question here, a principal at a school who instructs educators without accepting input from them illustrates the what type of management style. We've got participative, which we know is when people get involved. Autocratic is whatever your boss says you do. Free reign, people get to choose what they want to do. And charismatic people lead people through their personality. So in this case, the only thing that would make sense is because the principal is not asking for any input, would definitely be B, an autocratic management style. Question C, now the ability to influence others based on personal charm and inspiration is known as the what leadership style. So we've got free reign, autocratic, charismatic, and super. The answer here, quite simply, would be charismatic. Remember, charismatic leaders, we want to lead others through what we are doing. And again, just a little tip for short questions, always make sure that if you try and have the answer in your head, so when you read through it, you're like, oh, okay, I think it's C. And if you're not entirely sure, try and work it out by order of elimination. So let's have a look at the next question. This question is, which one of the following is a function of a workplace forum? Now, workplace forums we've done in the past. If you don't remember it, just make a little note on your page, workplace forums, and just remind yourself to go check it out. So, which one of the following is a function of workplace forum? So we've got ensuring that employers engage in social responsibility programs. We've got planning staff functions. We've got joint participation by employers and employees. And lastly, negotiating loans on behalf of an enterprise. So if we read through this, grade 12s, we will see the answer here would be C. So what is meant with C? Let's quickly read the question. Which one of the following function is, which one of the following is a function of a workplace forum? And that would be C, joint participation by employers and employees in labor issues. Now, let's quickly do the last question here. So the best way to resolve conflict is to, there are 4 options here: promote the affected worker, address conflict issues and solve them, ignore the affected worker, and transfer the affected worker. The answer in this case is B, grade 12s, address the conflict issue and solve it. Now, I haven't done conflict resolution with you yet, but I just wanted you guys to just give you grade 12s, to get an idea of maybe trying to think outside the box a little bit. So in conflict situations, for example, it makes sense to try and sort out the issue or what is the source of the conflict instead of avoiding it. But next week's show, we're going to go into a lot more detail on conflict. So get yourselves ready on conflict, because that's unfortunately something we all deal with all the time. Now, question 3 is a bit of a longer question. Again, also from a previous matric paper. And this should help you for prepping for the finals, or prelims actually. So let's have a look. So this was from the 2009 paper. And this question asks us, name and explain one management style that you consider to be the most effective in ensuring maximum success in a business enterprise. So a question like this, grade 12s, I want to give you a tip. So the question is, which style do you think is the best? So they're not asking specifics, so you can really choose any one you like. So for today's show, I've taken the 2 styles I really enjoy. Well, not enjoy, I just like the concepts of them. And the 2 are autocratic and democratic. So let me help you, or let me show you, which is a nice way of answering this question. So the first example I'm going to use is autocratic. Now remember, because I said you choose your favorite, you choose any 2. Or actually, it's asking you for 1. I'm giving you 2, so you've got a bit of extra info. So first one. So what is, so let's just look at the question one last time. Name and explain one management style that you consider to be most effective. So the style, or the first style I've chosen is autocratic. Now, as I say autocratic, I hope a whole bunch, I've spelled that really funny, sorry. I hope you've all already sitting here going, oh, I know exactly what that is, and I can finish this for. So that's the first part here, guys. So you will get 2 points for naming the style. Then you need to motivate why you have chosen this exact style, or why you've chosen this. So I'm going to give you, let's do 2 examples. So the first part to this is, remember these are the characteristics. So it would be, this is a dictatorial style, and it is best suited for crisis situations. And let's do another one. It's very useful. It's useful when you are implementing a policy control. So it's useful, using, I'm sorry, there's a gremlin clearly in my brain today because I'm jumping all over the show. So it is useful when you're implementing a new policy. Now, why I added in why it's useful for a new policy, remember when we were looking at stress management, things like that, people often don't like change, and change causes stress. So when there's a situation where things are really changing for people, they often resist it. And if a company needs to do something quite drastic, an autocratic leadership style may help in that it doesn't give people too much room to, I don't know, fight about it or become upset about it. They just simply have to do what they need to do. And in the long run, that might be very beneficial to the business. Now remember, I told you I'm going to do a second style that I quite like, it's the democratic. So let's write this down. I'll make some space here. So again, style, and it's democratic. And the motivation is the following. Now, this allows subordinates to help with decision making. Now remember, when you're part of making a choice, chances of you implementing or following this choice is a lot higher because you were involved in doing it. So democratic definitely, in my mind, makes a lot of sense. You get people to buy into the idea because they were part of the idea. Let's do one more example with this. And also, it creates the opportunity for subordinates. So it creates the opportunity for subordinates to take responsibility in many of the decision-making processes. So remember, let's just go back to the exact question, because I think if you were a little bit sleepy, yeah, you would have completely missed what I was going on about. So the question was, grade 12s, name and explain one management style that you consider to be the most effective in ensuring maximum success in a business presently. So like I said, 2 marks for telling me the style and 2 marks for your motivation. And with a motivation in this case, grade 12s, it's basically a characteristic. So you need to prove that you actually know what you are talking about. So if you get a question like this, choose the style perhaps that you know the most about, and that will help you answer that. This question also has a B, which is quite a long one, so let's jump into it. So question B asks us, differentiate, I'm going to grab a different color, so differentiate between management and leadership. So that's the first part of the question, grade 12s. Then explain whether a good manager is better than a good leader. That's the second part to it. So again, we're going back to that whole like leadership versus management fight about who's the best. So in this question, grade 12s, what we're going to do first, we're going to sort of compare management to leadership, and then from there write a short little thing about which one you think is the best. And remember, in this case, remember if they ask your opinion, there isn't really a right or wrong answer in your opinion, but where you get the mark is when you substantiate. And what do we mean to substantiate? When you motivate or prove why your statement makes sense. So let's go, I just want to go to a new slide. So remember, we're looking at management versus leadership, the big fight. So on a piece of paper, you can write management. And on the other side, we can have leadership. And because I'm actually quite liking this boxing match, let's just throw in a versus in the middle there. So remember, it's a table, so let's make the table. So the first quality of management is that they exercise control over their personnel. So exercise control over their personnel. So they get people to do, people do what they have to do. Next, with a leader, what they do is they influence and motivate people to do what they need to do. So if we are comparing, let's just have a look here. A manager exercises control. So in other words, they force their control onto people. So this is what needs to be done, depending on their management style though, but stuff gets done because the manager tells them how to do it. On the other hand, a leader will influence people and try and get them motivated to do what needs to be done, right? So that's the first comparison. The second comparison, I'm going to do, let's do 2 more, and then I should give you guys a good idea. So what management generally does is that they try to minimize risk, okay, to make sure that the business stays successful, where a leader will always try to look for opportunities. So they always try to look for opportunities. So a manager might be stressed about how do we make this the least risky experience, and a leader will be looking at how can you make an opportunity out of this. And grade 12s, can you see a leader and leadership qualities are quite nice in that an entrepreneur, which is something we've done a lot about, entrepreneurs need a lot of leadership quality, and that's what makes them really good.
We've come to the end of today's show. Thanks to Macmillan for making the show possible, and thank you for joining me and for participating in this revision session. Don't forget to include Learn Extra Winter School in your plans for July. Go to our website learnextra.co.za/live to get all the details. Also remember that if you are stuck on any questions, you can get help by sending an email to helpdesk@learnextra.co.za. All the best for your exams.